how important this bill is. Guns continue to be the weapons of mass destruction in our communities. They continue to snatch the lives of our children, burying our future and the hopes and the dreams that they had in them to achieve. Ghost guns, which were created for the illegal use and the lack of accountability to trace, are one of the latest devious methods to bring death to our streets in the country and in Chicago and in Illinois. I'm grateful to Senator Collins, to Mayor Lightfoot, to Representative Buckner, Speaker Welch, Director Kelly, Pam Bosley, Delphine Curry, and Kathleen from GPAC, and of course, all those who have gathered here to be part of this and supporting this. And thank you, Governor Pritzker, who have committed not only his focus to ghost gun issue, but on this epidemic of gun violence that is killing us in our communities. I pray that Governor, you and other voices like yours will continue to push our Congress and our Senate to have federal legislation that continues to deal with this gun madness and this love affair with guns in America, banning assault weapons, continuing to make sure there's background checks for everybody, and closing all the loopholes. Governor, the gun laws we have to pass in this battle that has the CDC saying the #1 cause of death of young people in America is guns. The #1 cause. When are we going to take this cause up in the federal government? I thank you for not just your focus on this issue and the ghost guns, but also the dollars you have allocated to try and prevent and interrupt this plague that is traumatizing neighborhoods like this all around the country. I thank you also, Governor, finally, for bringing some compassion, accountability, and commitment back to the governor's office of this state. Please welcome with me Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Well, thank you very much, Father Pfleger, and thank you for your leadership on this extraordinarily important issue. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure, really, to be here in Auburn Gresham with my partners in state government, including Speaker Chris Welch, who's standing just to over my right shoulder, and the chief bill sponsors. That's Leader Jackie Collins over my left shoulder here, Representative Cam Buckner, Representative Lakeisha Collins, Representative Lamont Robinson, and their Democratic colleagues in the General Assembly. Thank them for their efforts in this fight. Illinois State Police Director Brendan Kelly, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Superintendent David Brown, local leaders in government and law enforcement, advocates for justice here today, and courageous survivors of gun violence are here to share their stories. Reducing gun violence is among my highest priorities. Protecting law enforcement, giving police the tools and technology they need, modernizing our crime labs so that we can solve crimes faster, addressing the underlying root causes of violent crime. These are among the strategies that we're employing to eliminate the violence that is taking too many of our residents' lives. Another strategy we're employing is focused on keeping deadly weapons out of the hands of the bad guys. Last summer, I signed the law that is the most comprehensive reform to our state firearms laws in over a generation, including universal background checks to keep guns from getting into the wrong hands. Today, we build on that progress by banning the sale and possession of the untraceable privately made firearms known as ghost guns. These are unregistered guns with no serial numbers that are often made at home or assembled from kits purchased online, and they become virtually untraceable. Ghost guns are deadly weapons with horrifying implications. Last year, over 20,000 ghost guns were involved in criminal investigations nationwide, a tenfold increase from 2016. Earlier this month, law enforcement seized a self-manufactured gun in the possession of a teenager at Oak Park River Forest High School. And last week, using the expressway security cameras my administration installed, Illinois State Police arrested individuals in connection with multiple armed carjackings. Among their weapons of choice, a ghost gun. The legislation that I signed last year closed the deadly loophole that prevented people with dangerous histories like violent criminals and domestic abusers from purchasing a weapon. That was a bipartisan-backed change, and for good reason. Today, we're taking the next step by banning ghost guns. We're making it so those very same people can't legally obtain an untraceable weapon on their own, circumventing the background check that responsible gun owners all go through. Why isn't this a bipartisan-backed bill? Because now it's an election year. So the NRA gun lobby has told Republicans they can't vote for a bill like that. So they didn't. A child should not be able to build an AR-15 like they're building a toy truck.
Right.
A convicted domestic abuser should not be able to evade scrutiny by using a 3D printer to make a gun. This law will ban those ghost guns and others, and will help keep families and communities safe. Stopping the cycle of gun violence means utilizing all the tools in the toolbox, addressing poverty, disinvestment, lack of access to health care, mental health and substance use treatment. Since taking office, my administration, working with the General Assembly, has tripled the state's investments in programs to interrupt and prevent violence. We're recruiting and training a record number of new state police, building state-of-the-art labs to solve crime, and investing in the technology police need to catch the bad guys. And we're keeping illegal guns out of the hands of criminals by doing those things. In short, in an America where gun violence has become a scourge on so many neighborhoods, Illinois is taking a common sense approach to advancing public safety and justice from all directions. With that, I have the great honor of introducing the bill's sponsor in our state Senate, the great leader, Jackie Collins.
Good morning. Today, my legislation, House Bill 4383, is being signed into law to protect Illinois families from one of the deadliest public safety concerns. In this year alone, ghost guns have claimed more than 9,000 lives. Furthermore, the spike in the number of buy, build, shoot firearms puts our residents at constant increased risk of harm. For our Black and brown communities who experience fatal gun violence far more than their white counterparts, this law will drive healing within the community. The attack on people of color occurring nationwide is fatiguing, disgusting, and unfounded. Our country must begin to prioritize the safety and well-being of these targeted individuals, and I am proud to lead that charge in Illinois. With this law, these easy-to-access weapons will be phased out of existence, promoting safe, legal gun ownership in every corner of the state. Ensuring all firearms have sterilization allows our police force to conduct thorough investigations when crime strikes our neighborhoods. Though President Biden has enacted a national policy to crack down on the manufacture and distribution of ghost guns, his measure does not go far enough. The national policy doesn't include individuals. This legislation closes that loophole by calling for individual possessors of unserialized firearms to have them serialized within 180 days. Without this provision, ghost guns will continue to find their way into the hands of those who seek to harm others. I worked in partnership with Representative Cam Buckner in the Illinois House and Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart, as well as Mayor Lightford, to create and pass this law, and we faced political adversity to advance this measure through the General Assembly. Now, I proudly stand with my supporting colleagues who helped Illinois achieve safer environments for its residents. This ceremony, which brings us all here today, marks a day of celebration for what has been accomplished, and it is a promise of what is to come. This is only a piece of our anti-violence efforts. Illinois continues to be an example of what leadership is supposed to look like. This is what service to our residents looks like. With this legislation, I am eager to see communities begin to rebuild. I would like to bring to the podium now my House sponsor of this legislation, Representative Cam Buckner.
Good morning. As Senator Collins said, today is a very, very special day. I want to first start off by thanking the tribal chieftain of the mighty and beloved faith community of St. Sabina, Father Mike. Thank you for always being there and for always speaking with a clear and convincing voice about what needs to be done and then rolling up your sleeves and doing it. We're all better for it. To Governor Pritzker, thank you for your unparalleled leadership in this space. And to the always fierce and passionate and principled Senator Collins, it was truly one of the great joys of my legislative careers to be the Robin to your Batman on this bill. I also want to say thank you to the advocates, the survivors, the champions, folks like GPAC, Everytown, Brady, Moms Demand Action, for your work and your tireless efforts in this fight. I also want to acknowledge Mayor Lightfoot, Superintendent Brown, and Director Kelly for being here today and for the work that you all do every day. As we continue to fight to keep Illinoisans safe, cracking down on gun violence is an essential step. Right now, unserialized, untraceable ghost guns have left a gap in the criminal law for those who wish to inflict violence and chaos on our streets. And they can and they have abused and exploited that loophole. On Sunday, a 16-year-old boy, Shondell Holliday, was fatally shot during an altercation in Millennium Park, just about 12 miles from here and in the northern part of my district. A second teenager adjacent to the incident pulled out a gun that police later determined to be a ghost gun. Governor Pritzker talked about this earlier. Several weeks ago, a teen in Oak Park brought a self-made ghost gun to school. And just last weekend, an operation that coordinated between CPD and the Illinois State Police to stop carjacking sprees found ghost guns in that effort as well. These dangerous weapons are not entering into our communities, they have entered. And they are affecting children at a young age and making all of us much less safe. This law will help prevent ghost guns from getting into the hands of the wrong people, whether they be kids, whether they be criminals who shoot up our streets and recruit our children into violent activities. Let me be crystal clear. The only people who need untraceable guns are people who are trying to evade the law. We find ourselves embroiled in a larger national debate. I think Father Mike touched on this, about common sense gun legislation and doing the things we need to do to make us all safer. The inconvenient truth is that while states around us have decided to succumb to the pressure of the gun lobby, Illinois is still standing strong. The inconvenient truth is that nationally, we have not done enough. In 2011, in Tucson, Arizona, a sitting congresswoman was shot and nothing changed. In 2017, in a Washington suburb, another sitting U.S. congressperson was shot and nothing changed. We have watched countless images of young people in schools terrorized in places where they should be nurtured, and nothing has changed. We listen to the tally of lives lost in this city every single Monday, specifically after warm weather weekends. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting, and nothing has changed. In 1981, 6 weeks apart, both the President of the United States and the Pope were shot, and nothing has changed. Despite all of that, Illinois has refused to sit back idly. We have recommitted to doubling our efforts to show others how to get it done. And today, we are getting it done. I thank Governor Pritzker once again for swiftly signing this bill into law, and I thank my colleagues in the House and the Senate for supporting it. Next up, I would like to bring to the podium the leader of the Illinois House of Representatives, our Speaker, Emmanuel Chris Welch.
Thank you, Chairman Buckner. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. What a privilege it is to be here today, standing with Governor J.B. Pritzker, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Father Michael Pfleger, a champion in this struggle for a very long time, Superintendent David Brown, and Director Brendan Kelly, who have been great counsel to me in my new position as Speaker, and to the many advocates who have been fighting for this issue for a very long time. Because of all of them, we are here today to make Illinois the first state in the Midwest to ban ghost guns. We're the first, and with these people standing beside me, trust me, we won't be the last. Across the country, we know ghost guns have been a loophole for violent criminals to get their hands on weapons. But these untraceable guns also make it much harder for our law enforcement to do their jobs and to solve gun crimes. We've seen ghost guns used in shootings all across this country, in New York, Washington, Kansas, Florida, New Mexico, California, Maryland, and that's just in 2022. This is a rapidly growing threat to our communities and our safety. And Illinois is not immune, as you've just heard Chairman Buckner say. In 2019, Chicago police officers recovered 72 of these ghost guns in 2019. Last year, just 2 years later, they recovered nearly 500. Gun violence is plaguing our nation. It's tearing apart families and is taking lives far too soon. One more innocent life lost, ladies and gentlemen, is one more too many. This is an important step forward, not backward, to keep our communities safe. We don't want to go backward. We want to keep moving forward. And this is just the start of the direction that we're going to continue to move Illinois in. And I want to thank profusely Representative Cam Buckner, Senator Jackie Collins, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Superintendent David Brown, and our State Police Director, Brendan Kelly, and all of these stakeholders for working together to make sure that this day happened. We don't get anything done by working alone. Right. We get things done building alliances and working together. We're the first, but we're certainly not the last. We're just getting started. And so I'm looking forward to the governor putting his pen on the paper today, making this ghost gun a smart crime bill that becomes law. And I want to welcome to the podium now to give us more detail on why this is such important legislation today, our Illinois State Police Director, Brendan Kelly. Director.
Thank you. Virtually every day, the Illinois State Police recovers firearms, some stolen, some used in crimes, and some with no serial number. Unserialized, privately made firearms, or PMFs, more commonly known as ghost guns. Over the years, we've seen the numbers of these privately made firearms increase. For example, in 2020, ISP Labs analyzed 62 ghost guns. That number increased to 180 in our forensic case assignments last year, and we're already at 164 in our laboratory system just this year. So we're going to double it every year at this rate. Criminals are finding it easier and cheaper to buy an unfinished firearm frame than to steal a gun or find one on the streets where the serial number has been defaced. With little work, the unfinished frame becomes a fully functioning firearm. We're talking about both pistols and AR-15s, and it's not just the guns we're finding, but extended magazines and high-capacity round magazines. These firearms are often assembled from kits that can be bought online and do not have serial numbers, sold without background checks, and easy for criminals to acquire while difficult for law enforcement to check, which is what brings us here today. Since taking office, the governor has given the direction and resources to rebuild the Illinois State Police and laid the foundation for law enforcement to pursue a better strategy for combating illegal firearms. Through stable budgeting and fixing long-standing weaknesses, we are bringing the state's firearms background check system out of the 1960s and into the 2020s, with ISP preventing over 25,000 unlawful attempts to obtain a firearm in 2020 alone. That's a record number. The legislation signed today adds another element to that strategy by making it illegal for someone to sell or possess an unserialized, unfinished frame or receiver or unserialized firearm in most cases. This includes firearms produced by three-dimensional printer. Our growing strategy includes legislation signed by Governor Pritzker requiring guns used in crimes to undergo e-trace, a search in federal databases, and shell casings to be entered in the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, as well as legislation creating gun intelligence sharing for law enforcement where ISP uses information sharing, partnerships, crime analysis, and evidence-based practices to pursue justice in firearm-related shootings, homicides, and gun trafficking. This includes using ballistic and e-trace data, DNA evidence, latent fingerprints, and firearms trading data. Along with the major investments in forensics and the rebirth of the Illinois State Police Division of Criminal Investigation, the strategy to combat illegal firearms now includes the illegal manufacturing of firearms, progressing to the timely dissemination of intelligence to investigators, investigative follow-up, and coordinated prosecution to protect public safety and to pursue justice. And with that, let me introduce Ms. Pamela Bosley. Pamela Bosley, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Pam Bosley, one of the founders of Purpose Over Pain. So I'm going to tell my Purpose Over Pain moms to come stand with me and Dad. Purpose Over Pain, we're a group of parents whose children's lives was taken by gun violence. And I just wanted to kind of tell you who I am. I have three sons, three amazing sons. One of my sons, Terrell Bosley, at the age of 18, he was a college student doing all the right things. At the age of 18, his life was taken by senseless gun violence on the grounds of a church, a place that should have been safe. And I will forever and forever say his name and tell his story. I have two other amazing sons. My middle son is Therese Bosley. He's a college grad and he's a truck driver. And I have a younger son, Trey, just graduated from SIUE last weekend, and his major is electrical engineering and his minor is math. So I said all that to say is that I have one son whose life was taken. It was ended by gun violence, and my goal is every single day to fight so that my other sons can live. And we just recently had one of our parents, her name is Sharon Purnell. Last weekend, her husband was mowing the lawn, doing landscaping, and somebody came by and shot him. He was 65 years old, and his life was taken, and his funeral was tomorrow, so we'll be there with her. Her only son 5 years ago was shot and killed, and now she has to bury her husband. So that made me think that this can happen to any of us. It's no age limit. It's happening to our young people. And that's why I mentioned my other two sons, because I want them to live. And I'm a mother that's standing here that's suffering from anxiety, depression. Anxiety, and I'm nervous about my other two sons, and I'm nervous about losing other individuals to gun violence. So I'm asking that, I just want to say thank you to the Governor JB, for your stance on gun violence, for Senator Collins and her representatives for putting together this ghost bill that can stop these untraceable guns that's flooding our community, that can flood our community, because you can take these guns and you could purchase them online and you could purchase them in the store and you could put them together and you can shoot any of us. Right. So I truly thank you, Governor, for taking the time today and signing this bill. I thank GPAC for pushing the bills and all the advocate people. And I just want to, I know that change is going to come. And every time you see me, I'm always going to mention my son's name, Terrell, because my goal is every single day is to make him happy and pray that there's no more mothers or fathers standing with us again, they have to bury their children. So next, I'm going to bring to the mic Delphine Cherry. She actually is part of Purpose Over Pain, and she had to bury 2 of her children.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning. Good morning. You have to excuse me, I'm a little hoarse. My name is Delphine Cherry. I'm a mother and I'm an advocate, and I'm a survivor of gun violence. I'm standing here today because 2 of my children, Thais and Tyler, were lost to gun violence 20 years apart. Thais was only 16, coming out of the movie theater, and she was hit by a stray bullet, and she was killed instantly. 20 years later, my son, Tyler, had got off work from Walmart, going to a friend's party, and he was shot down in my driveway. This past May, Thaisa would have been 47 years old, and I can't imagine having a child 47 years old. I don't have any grandkids from her. I don't have a son-in-law from neither one of them. The pain of losing my 2 children never goes away, but it's also a motivation. It's also a motivation for me to take action, to advocate for laws, to stop senseless and preventable gun violence that destroyed too many families and communities. That's why I stand here today, and I'm proud to be a part of the overseeing of Governor Pritzker signing this bill into law banning ghost guns immediately. It requires existing ones and serializing and the traceable ones. Most important, I believe this law will save lives. Just this past weekend, we saw a 16-year-old boy tragically killed in Millennium Park. The ghost gun that was recovered from another teenager at the scene. It breaks my heart to see other mothers go through what I have to go through. I'm sending a message for them. Be strong and know that you have an entire city and community of survivor parents behind you. It is truly unbelievable that until now we have allowed anyone to buy parts and printed them at home and build an untraceable weapon in 15 minutes. But that is the sad state of gun safety in much of America, where ghost guns are legal and untraceable in 38 states. Today, we say no more, Illinois. No more. While no law will stop gun violence, stopping the sale of deadly, untraceable guns will save many lives and stop many others from experiencing the pain I have to live through every day. Thank you, Governor Pritzker, Senator Collins, and Representative Buckler for campaigning for this law. Now I will bring in Chicago's Mayor, Lori Lightfoot.
Let me start and remind people the powerful testimony that you've just heard from Pam Bosley and from Delphine Cherry. And they stand in the shoes and represent many people across the city who have been victimized directly by gun violence. These, mostly women, mourn the loss of their children, and they are courageous fighters for peace. We can't forget them. The reporting that sometimes happens is stats and who got shot and who got killed, but behind every single one of them is a Pam Bosley, a Delphine Cherry, a Maria Pike, Millie Burgos, and others who are feeling this pain directly and carrying this weight with them. We can't forget that. And I also want to make sure that we rise up and acknowledge that we're here at St. Sabina, which is ground zero for us in the city for consciousness about the continued fight for peace and the demand that elected officials hold themselves more accountable, the demands that we do pass laws that help in this fight, but also that we must continue to prick the consciousness of our young people who are picking up these guns and settling, oftentimes, petty disputes at the end of a barrel. This fight continues. And Father Mike said this years ago, and he said it again today, and I want to lift it up. We are burying our talent because of gun violence. This issue of ghost guns is a continued and rising threat to our safety, each and every one of us. It was a top legislative priority for me, and when I met with the Speaker and President Harmon back in December, talking about what the legislative agenda would look like, this is one of the items that I put on the top of the list, and that's why I was so grateful to partner with Senator Collins and Sheriff Dart to make sure that we created a piece of legislation, as Senator Collins said, that left no room, that closed all the loopholes, and demanded accountability for them who are ordering over the internet these kits of destruction in our city. And let me just give you a few points of what that means to us, and I'm going to invite the superintendent to also speak briefly. Last year, in 2021, the Chicago Police Department found 264 ghost guns. That was a 64% increase over the previous year. And we're on a record pace, unfortunately, again this year. And one of the young people where we found a gun at Millennium Park, a 16-year-old, think about that, also carrying a ghost gun. This is a crisis moment for us around violence in general, but also around the proliferation of these ghost guns. The New York Times has just reported today the exponential increase in the manufacture of guns in our country. Folks, we've got to wake up. The gun manufacturers are getting rich while we are burying boys and girls and elders all over this country without any consequences for the people who are part and parcel of the problem, and that's also the gun manufacturers. This is a national issue. Mayors all over the country are grappling with this, and we've got to come together at every level of government and with our trusted community partners to stand and say no more. Ghost guns, as you've heard, can be bought online. They have no serial numbers. They're easily assembled and are untraceable. This bill addresses both the assembly from the kits and those made in 3D printer parts, which is critically important. Chicago Police Department and Cook County Sheriff have both seen, as you also heard from Director Kelly, an exponential increase in the number of ghost gun recoveries, and unfortunately, we think that that number will continue to grow. So this is an important step for the state of Illinois. It's important for the state to show leadership on this issue, and we were glad to be a part of helping get to this moment. But we need national legislation to ban these guns because we're surrounded by Indiana, by Michigan, Wisconsin. We know every single year that guns are pouring across the borders from those states and endangering lives here in the city of Chicago. So we must take this moment and appreciate the work that has been done, but the work's not over. We've got to continue. And we cannot rest until we see every state step up, and particularly every state in the Midwest, so that Chicagoans can sleep a little bit easier, knowing that these dangerous weapons of mass destruction, and I think that was the right word, Father Mike, that these dangerous weapons of mass destruction are off our streets and out of the hands of children once and forever. I'm going to invite the superintendent to say a few words from his perspective and what the challenges is that all his officers are also facing. Sue.
So I'll say it again very plainly. A ghost gun is a gun. It's a gun that kills, that wounds families, grieving families, Chicago Police Department and its officers seized 11,400 guns in 2020. Over 12,000 guns seized in 2021. Both those years are record levels of gun seizures. But the subset of guns seized that's growing the most is ghost guns. A 64% increase in ghost guns seized so far this year, after a 70% increase in ghost guns seized the previous year. A ghost gun is a gun. It's the largest growing seized gun in the city of Chicago in the last 2 years. We need this legislation. Thank you, Governor Pritzker. Thank you, House Speaker. Thank you, state reps that sponsor this. This bill will save lives. Every gun seized is a life saved. That's a mother and a family that doesn't have to grieve. And it's also important to recognize our men and women in law enforcement risk everything to seize these guns. There's been a 500% increase in Chicago police officers shot at and shot these last 2 years. 500% increase. A ghost gun is a gun. And thank you all for being here and sponsoring and signing this bill, Governor. Thank you.
And our final speaker today is GPAC's Kathleen Sansis.
Good morning, everybody. I want to just take a second to thank Pam Bosley, Delphine Cherry, all the members of Purpose Over Pain, every person standing, sitting in this auditorium that has lost a loved one to gun violence. In the face of all these tragedies, you're resolved to end gun violence and to fight to keep other families from feeling the pain of losing a child or a loved one is nothing short of an inspiration. My name is Kathleen Sansis, President and CEO of the Gun Violence Prevention PAC, GPAC for short. Our organization was founded in 2013 to counter the influence of the gun lobby in Springfield and pass common sense legislation to keep Illinoisans safe. We stand here today only days after multiple tragedies across our country, from a Buffalo supermarket to a church in California, a tourist attraction right here in Chicago. We must do whatever we can to stop these senseless acts of violence because they are taking away too many of our loved ones. A 16-year-old boy was the victim of a fatal shooting at Millennium Park, and an untraceable build-it-yourself firearm, known as a ghost gun, was recovered. With Governor Pritzker's signature today, Illinois becomes the first state in the Midwest to make ghost guns illegal and make ours a safer state. Add this piece of legislation to our recent efforts to crack down on unlicensed gun dealers and block illegal gun ownership, and you have one of the most comprehensive gun violence prevention efforts in the nation, enacted here in Illinois by this governor and this General Assembly. Thank you. Thank you, Governor Pritzker, President Harmon, Senator Collins, Speaker Welch, Representative Buckner, and so many more for making Illinois a safer state. I would be remiss if I didn't call out our 200-plus statewide coalition partners, national advocates like Brady United, Everytown, Giffords, Moms Demand Action, and all of the grassroots advocates who power this movement, and survivors who have experienced tremendous tragedy, yet fight the good fight every single day. And with that, I'm honored to turn it over to Governor Pritzker to save this life-saving legislation.
Okay, I'm going to take a few questions from members of the media. Give one second. Okay, nice to see you. Tina. Yes. Sure. Let me start by saying that we've made them illegal. You can't possess them either. And so that's the beginning. It's not, someone can't just take it apart and say it's not a gun, it has no serial number, it's not a gun. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is, and I'd be happy to turn it over if the superintendent's still here, if he wants to talk about how they go about removing the guns from people's possession when they discover they have them, or how they're recovering them. Is that something you'd be willing to do? Thank you.
You mind restating the question, if you don't mind? So yes, there are already guns out there. I think that's the point we've all tried to make, that a ghost gun is a gun like all the other guns. It's just a ruse to not have a serial number or a way to track and hold someone accountable to either manufacturing or buying and selling the gun. So this bill will close that ability to really hide from consequences, particularly in our courts, because it's not serialized. So this is an important piece of legislation. This is an important bill. It will save lives. It can look different, but it also can look the same. It can be really customized to look different, but many look the same as any other gun. That's why it's important to characterize it as a gun, just like other guns. It just doesn't have a serial number.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Well, it's an excellent question. Of course, this is only one piece, and I talked a little bit about this in my remarks. It's only one piece of a larger strategy to try to take guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. Obviously, our work to impose universal background checks to require people when they want to buy a gun to go through that. In addition to that, the ISP will tell you, and I know that the superintendent also would say, that we're engaged in a multi-intergovernmental effort to interdict the transport of guns across state lines illegally. We know that 60% of the guns that are involved in shootings in the city of Chicago come from out of state. They come from Indiana mainly. But go downstate and talk to people where guns are coming across from Missouri. And the mayor talked about how, other states that surround us have much more lax laws for acquiring guns. That's a real challenge for us. There's no doubt. That's why we need federal legislation. But we're doing everything that we can to try to track people who are acquiring these guns in other states, coming across state lines, and then not registering them. Yes, ma'am. Well, tell that to the people that get shot on the expressway. Someone said a gun is a gun, and it can kill. And so these are illegal guns. We've made them illegal. We've made them illegal to acquire. And we think that will have a measurable impact. Is there more that needs to be done? Of course. This is one thing, one important thing. You heard Father Flager talk about some of the other things that we've done over the last few years to make this state safer, to try to get those guns off the street. There is more to do. And let me be clear. guns aren't the only part of the problem, the gun itself. It's also the underlying challenges, poverty in our communities. Mental health treatment and substance use treatment, these are things that we have gone about significant efforts and dollars to try to build back up in our state. It was better 7 years ago, and then we had 2 years of a budget impasse that wiped out a lot of those services. We're now not only rebuilding, but actually doing better than before, and that's the direction we need to go, because you want to prevent violence before it happens. Well, one thing we're counting on certainly is for the media to make sure you're reporting on what the consequences are. But it's always true that, you know, there are a lot of laws on the books and people don't necessarily know what's legal or what the consequences are of something being illegal. Having said that, I think somebody who puts a gun together from parts that they acquire over the internet and then goes out to commit a crime knows that if they get caught, they are going to be prosecuted. They are going to be put in jail. Yes. Hi. Oh my goodness. Well, let me just say that there's nobody who fought harder. Nobody who fought harder. You even heard the sponsor of the bill in the House, who did really good work, say he was the Robin to her Batman. I think that's a great way to describe Senator Collins. She really is the leader who made this happen. Thank you.